Namaskar. Welcome to Human Geography. We have a new module today on adaptations in modern society. We have seen in our last module how human societies, humankind adapts to the environment. We follow it on with some focus on modern society. It is important how adaptation strategies have changed and are changing as modern societies develop. It is important also to recap a little bit on adaptation. What is meant by adaptation? When we talk about adaptation, what we should really think about and how we have theorized about adaptation by human beings and animals from both biological and behavioral studies. To begin, adaptation is an evolutionary process. It is also a social process today. It occurs in physical, sociological, and human systems and addresses many factors and stresses, not simply, for example, climate change or agriculture-related problems. So, when looking at adaptation, it is good to practice and to consider the following. There are 4 things to consider, and they are the changes in social and environmental processes, and the changing perception of risk, the changing practices and functions to reduce risk, and exploration of new opportunities to cope with the changing environment. These 4 areas are very important in any adaptation. Whether we are talking about adaptation of the modern society or adoption of the traditional societies before us. So it would be good to look at 2 different perspectives on adaptation. One is a perspective from the evolutionary standpoint, and the other is a perspective from psychological or behavioral standpoint. Now, when we talk about evolutionary perspective, we are indeed talking about the ideas of Charles Darwin, who gave us the theory of evolution. One of the most important aspects of his theory was natural selection. Now we add to it adaptive behavior. Darwin and his observations have helped us to understand how natural selection and adaptation behavior are related. In very simple terms, the evolutionary perspective tells us adaptation is a way of life in all organisms, including human beings. Looking at environmental or evolutionary psychology, Charles Darwin emphasizes adaptation, reproduction, and survival of the fittest in shaping behavior. Evolution, in his opinion, explains human physical features as well as human behaviors. There's something called evolutionary development psychology, which explains humans and the behavior. In evolutionary development psychology, we have a few aspects. The first and foremost is that humans need larger brains and more complex societies. They need to think, they need to work out a strategy, and then they need to adapt. In order to adapt, they have to have a larger brain. And to live in a society which is complex and adapting at the same time to the prevailing environment in and around the society or the place where it lives, that he needs the brain. He needs to think. He needs to be knowledgeable and intelligent. He also needs to take the longest of maturity, that it takes a really long time period in his lifetime to become mature and think maturely.